as I've been long. The Black Lotus clan sends their regards.
Is this a challenge? It's promise!
Your reputation precedes you.
Ha ha! Perhaps, but you're still just a pussy.
Welcome to the motherfucker. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Fresh off her latest successful title defense, Gabby Fundora could move up to face Mizuki Hiruta, saying anybody can get it. Fundora defended her Ring Magazine, IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO titles by leveraging size, speed, power, and youth to dominate the novice Ruiz in a one-sided fight. Fundora outlanded Ruiz 102 punches to 22. The knockout win was the 6th in 7 fights during Fundora's flyweight title reign, which originally got underway in October of 2023, but there is no one else left for her to fight in the division. After pummeling Ruiz, Gabby Fundora, a 23-year-old southpaw from Coachella, California, said she's open to accommodating the scale to take on tougher challenges. I think I can make 108 pounds, but we'll see, said Fundora, number 6 in the Ring's pound-for-pound rankings and the Ring's 2024 Fighter of the Year. Maybe the plans change. Maybe someone else catches my eye at 115 pounds or at 112 if they want to come down. As of right now, I am enjoying the moment. I'm open to fighting anybody. Anybody can get it. I make it look easy, but it all comes from my training. I train hard. When Fundora was asked if she's excited about moving up to 115 to face Mizuki Hiruta, 10-0 with 2 KOs, the Ring Magazine and WBO champion and the Ring's 2025 Fighter of the Year, Sweet Poison flashed a megawatt smile. That's a big fight. Of course I welcome it, said Fundora. It sounds good, and I don't mind it. I want to fight everyone and whoever my promoters can bring to the table. I love boxing, and this is what I'm here for, to put on big shows for the fans. I showcase that I can box, I can brawl, I can do everything. That's why I'm the undisputed champion. I'm learning new things and maturing, and I'm always looking to top my previous performance. When fans go home, I want them to say, damn, that Fundora always gives knockouts. It doesn't matter who steps in the ring, because my last name is what they are going to remember at the end of the night, the end of the fight. While Gabby Fundora would be the more experienced fighter of the two, between her and Mizuki Hiruta, it's actually Mizuki that has the more experienced corner. She's got Manny Robles in hers, whereas Gabby's got her dad in hers, and while her dad has trained 2 world champions, Manny is responsible for some of the bigger upsets we've seen in the sport in the last decade or so. He was in Andy Ruiz's corner when he upset Anthony Joshua, Rafael Espinoza's corner when he upset amateur standout Rotisserie Ramirez, and more recently he was in Brendan Figueroa's corner when he upset reigning champion Nick Ball. Dubbed the upset maker, he would be in Mizuki Hiruta's corner for this fight, where the odds makers would likely have Gabby Fundora as the favorite. I think that matters. That Mizuki has the more experienced corner, more experienced in devising plans to win the fight against unfavorable odds. I think it also matters that Mizuki's a bit taller and longer than your average Gabby Fundora opponent, but she has punching power of her own, and her boxing is improving fight by fight. She's not racking up quite as many knockouts at Superfly as Gabby is at Fly, but if the fight were to take place at Superfly, I think it matters that Gabby would be fighting a bigger girl than she's used to seeing down there at Flyweight. These divisions are getting more and more talked about as Golden Boy Promotions has a prized stallion that rules the Flyweight division with an iron fist, and upstairs at Superfly, that MVP's got prized stallions in Jasmine Artiga and Liana Cruz. Tom Loeffler has Mizuki Hiruta. It's what I told you a little over a year ago, that these divisions are actually more stacked than, say, the super featherweight division, in some ways the lightweight division, and super light, that these divisions are actually even more talent rich. And all it's going to take is for the major promoters to make an investment in them, and you'll see what I'm talking about. That's what we're seeing now. Fundora versus Hiruta is the super fight. It's the best fight to make anywhere at or around these weights. If you could give anybody a fighting chance against Gabby Fundora to upset the odds, it would be Mizuki. But alas, I don't think we're on the eve of this fight, because what Gabby's talking about is moving down, moving even further down to light flyweight. She mentioned a potential Lourdes Juarez fight, which we talked about in a previous video. Lourdes is the WBC's light flyweight champion, and I think that fight for Gabby would go the same as this weekend's fight. Wouldn't be surprised if Gabby stops her. I think that Mizuki would give her a better fight, a harder fight, even though she's less experienced than Lourdes and less experienced than Gabby. I think at these weights, she is her most formidable adversary. She's got to stay WBO champion. She's got to stay in the winner's bracket. She's in a stacked division herself, with 3 other champions to take care of. But the conversation is starting and the momentum is building for a Fundora versus Hiruta showdown. Men's welterweight news, former champion Brian Norman doesn't see why Devin Haney rematch can't happen. Haney, fighting as a full-fledged welterweight for the first time, put Norman down and defeated him handily by UD to spoil Norman's perfect record and take his WBO title last November. Norman is moving forward with his career, but wants to run things back with Haney at some point. Most definitely, Norman told The Ring when asked if he wants a rematch down the line. Of course he does. Of course. He needs a rematch with Devin like Devin needs that rematch with Ryan. You think I'm just gonna let that happen and go about my business? Boy, no. Devin Haney's still active. I'm still active. As a matter of fact, he's still at 147 at that. Why won't that door open up again? Well, because the rematch that Devin is moving towards right now is the rematch with Ryan. There's actually a precedent for that one. Whereas there's no precedent for a Brian Norman rematch. For what? The fight was so lopsided and uninteresting outside of the early knockdown, no one is asking to see them fight each other again. Nobody's asking for a rematch except for Brian. I think to get it, he would have to go on some kind of run. I mean, some hell of a run. A good run of form, and fight guys that are good and actually beat them before he can re-enter the conversation for a fight with Devin. Norman has been busy. He recently announced that his father, Brian Norman Sr., who served as his career-long head trainer, will be replaced by veteran mentor Ronnie Shields. Elsewhere, the 25-year-old launched his own promotional company, Throwback Boxing Promotions. However, the ring's number 2 ranked welterweight doesn't know when he'll return to the ring. When he does, he said, he will have become a better fighter as a result of the setback. Not with Ronnie Shields in his corner, he won't. In case you haven't been here long enough, I don't have a high opinion of Ronnie Shields as a trainer. I would have recommended a couple of other guys for Brian before I would have recommended Ronnie. Maybe Buddy McGirt, Derek James, Derek that used to train Errol Spence Jr. and all the success they had together. Brian Norman could have done a lot worse than have Derek James in his corner. He did do a lot worse. He's got Ronnie Shields there. I was fighting more so emotional instead of being myself, Norman said. It's a lesson learned. I got to take my hat off to Devin Haney for doing that. He won the mental warfare battle. It got me out of my character. I just salute him. You have to live and you learn. It's gonna take high-profile victories to get Brian Norman back in the conversation for a Devin Haney fight. One fight that almost immediately comes to mind is a Teofimo Lopez fight, because Teo is coming off the loss to Shakur, Brian is coming off the loss to Devin. Ideally, they would settle up with each other in a loser-gets-out-of-town kind of fight. I would like to see that, though I can't bank on that happening next. But that's the kind of fight that Brian has to build himself up to. That's the kind of opponent he has to beat. A guy like Teofimo Lopez, a guy like Keyshawn Davis upon ascending to the welterweight division, somebody with a profile, somebody with a name. Because the way it looks on paper, as soon as Brian Norman stepped up in competition, he lost. And why'd you pick him? Because Devin looked a bit shell-shocked. From the Ryan Garcia fight when he fought Jose Ramirez, he spent the whole fight running around the ring, fighting timid, fighting scared. So I figured, fighting a bigger, younger fighter who's unbeaten with punching power, bigger than Jose, younger than Jose, with more power than Jose, I figured Devin might be in trouble, so I went with Brian. And I was wrong. Thus, on paper, it looks like as soon as Brian fought somebody who was good, really good, better than the guys that he had been fighting, it's as soon as it took for him to lose. I believe he's still with Top Rank, and Top Rank at this time, their broadcast situation being rather nebulous and subject to rumors that they may yet return to the ESPN platform, but nothing concrete has happened. If their situation is nebulous right now, then so is Brian, because to my knowledge, he's still with them. Sure he shouldn't just go over to Zuffa Boxing with all the other fighters migrating over there, see about becoming the inaugural Zuffa welterweight champion? It's not a terrible idea. If Top Rank remains in limbo for the first half of this entire calendar year, Brian's got to do something. He's got to get active. Time is of the essence to put distance between himself and that terrible performance in the Devin Haney fight. If Zuffa can't do anything else, they can keep him busy. They can keep him active.
Zuffa!
Just some things to think about. As stated, for Brian Norman to get back in the conversation, in the mix for a Devin Haney fight, another one, at a time where nobody's really asking for it, he'd have to show serious improvements. And he'd have to rack up a big win. More than one, I'd say. He would have to do something substantial to get Devin Haney to look back in his direction, because right now, Devin's got no reason to.
There's rumors that Devin Haney is microdose. Like major rumors in Florida. I told you about this. There's rumors that he microdoses when he's not fighting. There's rumors that it's a whole, he got a whole fucking section IV. I've had people tell me the whole fucking breakdown of it. You feel what I'm saying? I'm not making no excuses. I'm not saying that he beat Brian. I'm not saying none of that shit. You feel what I'm saying? So I'm not saying nothing. I'm not on none of that part there. I ain't making no excuses for nobody doing nothing. I'm saying that there are rumors that he's doing this. Now, with that being said, I'm going to say, so you got that test that Ryan tested dirty on with Oscarine, which nobody agrees with unfairness or whatever else, but y'all seen what Oscarine was for. You seen the amount of it that was in there. Again, if it's banned, it's a banned substance. It's a banned substance. You feel what I'm saying? But you was known to be with a cheater who said he can beat the test. What's my name? Turkey, the one that's putting the fights on, has his own rules. His rules are 8 weeks of testing. Those are his rules, 8 weeks of testing. That's all Ryan is required to do. So unless they can talk the man who putting the money up to do that, then who the fuck is Devin Haney?
I see what Brian Norman is saying. Turkey El Sheik is the one who sets the board. He's the one in charge, not Devin, and thus, a rematch with Ryan, it's gonna happen on Turkey El Sheik's terms. If it does happen, more than it's gonna happen on Devin's. Devin responded to these recent comments from Brian Norman Sr. by saying, I whooped Junior so bad his daddy's saying that I'm microdosing peds when I'm out of camp. The whole time, I'm the only fighter that's been signed up for 365 drug testing and still pushing for other fighters to do it. Brian Norman Sr. is just mad that he got fired and his son doesn't fuck with him anymore. It is true that following that loss, that's what coaxed Brian Norman Jr. to get rid of Sr. and hire Ronnie Shields. What we're hearing from Sr. could just be a case of sour grapes. It could be. He says that there are rumors that Devin's microdosing, but outside of Brian Norman Sr. being the one saying this, I never heard any rumors about Devin. I've heard rumors about other fighters, but not Devin. What people try to do with Devin is connect the dots due to his relationship with the now deceased Victor Conti. Guilty by association, boxing's version of RICO law. Guilty by proxy. If you're paired up with a guy that used to distribute peds to athletes, who's to say he's not distributing peds to you? That's the connection that people try to make, but as of yet, Devin's never failed a test, and I personally have never heard a rumor about him doping or microdosing. Let's just play devil's advocate for a second, because by now, anybody who follows this channel already knows how cynical I am. Just because Devin Haney never failed a test doesn't mean he's a clean fighter behind the scenes. I remember years ago when Jean Pascal was fighting Bernard Hopkins, and Jean Pascal was pressuring Bernard Hopkins to take an anti-doping test. You remember years ago the sit-down interview with the two of them, Jean Pascal screaming at Bernard, take the test. take the test, just so that years later, Jean Pascal could be the one that tests positive for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 banned substances.
4 of them.
You remember that years ago, Jarrell Miller used to make accusations about Anthony Joshua, saying that he was on something. He knows that he's on something. Just for Jarrell Miller to be the one that tests positive not once, but twice, and for more than 1 banned substance. Essentially what I'm getting at, you would have thought that these fighters were clean, based on what they were saying and how they were behaving, and they hadn't failed any tests until they did.
Know what I mean?
If what you're telling me is you think that Devin Haney might be microdosing, that wouldn't be the craziest thing I ever heard, because look at the amount of weight that Devin Haney had to cut to consistently make 135, to consistently make 140, and he still has to cut weight now to make 147.
Guy's gotta cut a lot of weight to where it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's on some sort of a diuretic, something to help him make the weight, not necessarily something to help him punch harder or fight longer, not something performance-based, but perhaps something banned that helps him get down there.
That would not surprise me after years and years of seeing fighters get caught in the act, none of which ever cop to the rap, none of which just ever come out and admit it, that they were cheating. Everybody's got a lofty explanation. At this point, I think everybody is on something. Everybody could be at the highest levels of the sport where the most money is being made.
If the difference between winning and losing is a little old syringe, a little old needle, I think a lot of people are going to do what they've got to do. And if you're telling me that Devin is one of those people, I wouldn't rule it out.
It's not only possible, it's plausible.
The issue with all of this is who it's coming from. It's coming from Brian Norman Sr., whose son just got handled by Devin. He's got every reason to try to slander him. Now it costed him his job. So we're supposed to believe it coming from him?
My perspectives on doping in the sport of boxing and what percentage of the top-level boxers might be on something I already had long before Brian Norman Sr. decided to say this stuff. But in a sport where practically everybody's cheating, isn't that like nobody's cheating? If all the top-level guys and some of the girls are all seeking a competitive edge behind the scenes, they're all doing the same thing, that puts a very different complexion on anti-doping testing and who decides to contract it. It's not from an effort to clean up the sport so much as to handicap the opponent.
Yeah, you don't get to use your gear for our fight, but I do, because I know when a testing's gonna go down, I'm the one who contracted them. Something like that. I've got my perspectives on doping in the sport of boxing. I have my reservations, but I'm not gonna pigeonhole Devin just because Brian says so. Brian's got every reason to try to drag his name in the mud. I can't take it from him, and you shouldn't either.